very stubborn species of some organisms. We have species hello we have species which partly spend their time in water, but basically they just go there to reproduce. Those are the amphibians. They are both terrestrial and aquatic. They go in water to lay eggs, to carry out reproduction. But they sometimes spend their time on land. So they are both aquatic and terrestrial. But we have two categories of habitat: aquatic habitat and terrestrial habitat. So we are going to look at aquatic habitat, their group, because organisms are staying in water. There is the way they adapted to different nature of water. Let's see this. Classification of habitats. As we talked earlier on, we have what we call the aquatic habitat. I've explained about that. However, the aquatic habitat has two, is further divided in two. We have what we call the freshwater habitats. The freshwater can include rivers and lakes. They're what we call the freshwater. They're what we call the freshwater. They're what we call the freshwater. Such kind of organisms which can easily be found in this fresh water are what we call the protozoa, the amoebas. These single-celled organisms, fish, aquatic plants such as algae and papyrus, protozoa, fish, aquatic plants, for example, algae and papyrus. So for them, they stay on fresh water, in fresh waters. That's why they're called, that's why it's called fresh water habitats. Now we have this marine salty water bodies. And this salty water can be seas, can be ocean, and sometimes it can be swamps. Now the inhabitants, such kind of organisms, which can be found out in such environment, are what we call the whales. We have seaweeds, and then what we call the sea anemones. These are some of the inhabitants of marine waters. The inhabitant of marine waters. They are the one. So the marine waters can be the seas and they can be all the oceans. That's under aquatic habitats and how their divisions are. So when you go back at, we shall look at in the first, when we were beginning up our session, I mentioned something. When it was in the part of habitats, the point was not to know, but to understand. To understand. to understand, not to know. The knowledge aspect was to know what ecology is. But now, when it comes to habitat, we need to understand that the habitat itself, part of the environment where this organism live, they can be divided into two. The habitats are categorized basically into two. We do have um, the aquatic one and the terrestrial one. But we are still focusing on the aquatic one. These aquatic ones can be divided into two habitats. There are those aquatic organisms which stay on fresh waters. That's what they call the fresh water inhabitants. And they do include papyrus, algae, protozoa, and fish. Two, we have marine water inhabitants. They include whales, they include sea anemones, they include sea weeds. Fresh water are obtained basically from lakes and rivers. Then our marine or salty waters are obtained. One, we have the seas, have the oceans, and the swamps. They are basically salty. That's as far as aquatic habitat is concerned. So we have what we call the terrestrial habitat. We have what we call the terrestrial habitats. Terrestrial habitats, from what we have here, have four good categories. Four good categories. One, forests. Forests. Our forests. Where the inhabitants, we have birds, we have insects, we have fungi, you have other animals like monkeys. For them, entirely, they stay in the forests. We have savanna, where we have birds, we have grazers. The grazers can be these buffaloes, it can be the deers, can mention them basically. Antelopes, those are examples of organisms which can stay in the savanna. Then we have the desert, where the inhabitants include the hard drought-resistant plants like the xerophytes, cactus. This is thorny plant. The leaves are thorny. That's the modification they have. Then we have camel, which is a very resistant animal which can stay in drought areas. So they are the inhabitants of deserts. We have cactus, have camel, have the xerophytes. These are all plants. These are hard resistant plants which can stay in deserts. Have cactus, as I mentioned earlier on. They're basically seen with their stems having thorns. Then lastly, we have what we call the underground. The underground being one of the categories of a terrestrial habitat. And there are very many inhabitants of such kind of environment or such part of the terrestrial habitat. We have the termites, burrowing mammals like the rodents, have the rabbits, we have the squirrels, we have the rats, mention them. And then we have earthworms. For them, they normally stay underground. So the competence is you must understand, not you must know. Understand what a habitat is. Understand how, understand that the habitats are grouped into aquatic and terrestrial. And two, you must know that aquatic habitats are grouped into freshwater and marine water habitats, where the fresh water can be obtained from lakes and rivers, and the organisms in them can be fish, aquatic plants, papyrus, algae, and so on. Then the marine water, we do have the sea anemones, which and the sea anemones, seaweeds, and whales. But such kind of water are salty, and they can be found in seas, they can be found in oceans, and they can also be found on swamps. So that's as far as aquatic is concerned. Then terrestrial, we have forest, savanna, desert, and somehow underground. So all of them are having inhabitants in them. Each of this part of the terrestrial environment has organisms which live in them, So that's as far as the classification of habitat is concerned. That's as far as the classification of the habitat is concerned. So we have this. We have this, which is called the environment. A moment, within 30 seconds. Okay, I'm back. I just asked 30 seconds. However, we are on left with the 3 minutes, the end of our lesson. And we also have another lesson which is going to come after this. So a recap of what we had learned. We will begin from environment here tomorrow. We are going to have a recap briefly on what we have studied today. We began with the concept of ecology, where we talked about it. And we have also so far learned one thing out of this concept here, which I wanted to understand. That's as far as habitat is concerned. We defined ecology, and we talked about it as the study of organism relations to the environment. We have also talked about the terms used in ecology, and these terms we used in ecology are one, environment, habitat, ecological niche, and ecosystem. We also talked about uh, community and species, and we are just stopped with the habitat, where we define the habitat as a precise place where an organism lives, and they can be divided into aquatic and terrestrial. Aquatic can be freshwater habitat, marine and marine. Meanwhile, terrestrial can be forest, savanna, desert, and the underground. Otherwise, remember, that's where we have stopped for today. We shall continue from here next time. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being patient. And thank you so much for giving your time, and thank you so much for believing in me. Thank you so much for believing in Mr. Seka, Mzee Waswa, and Mr. Chambade. All we are doing it for your sake. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I wish you the best in the upcoming lessons. And that's where I'm going to stop. If my colleague Mr. Seka has something to put for us, he can put, and then we proceed from there. Thank you so much, members of the class.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jojo. I believe today's network has been fine. And we are waiting for, I think, notes to be shared in the group too. We are going to have a break as usual. Then we come back for physics first. Then history will wind up the day. Let's have a break.